Hi, welcome back to another episode of Chris Dyer's Creative Friends, the super awesome podcast show where me, your artist friend Chris Dyer, talks to all his amazing creative friends. This week, I'm in Asheville, North Carolina, staying at the spot of my artist friend Kevin the Karma Glass, who has hired me to paint this mural behind me. And while I was here, we got to have a really nice conversation. Karma is a ball of energy, a very unique person and glassblower, a warrior of positivity, and a really wise person that has so many great things to share with us. So I hope you'll enjoy our conversation. Blessings!
While the world is burning, got to make amends. Walk on the sunny side with a positive lens. Talks about passion between a women and a man. Chris Dyer and his creative friends, darling. Ooh, ooh,
Is that possible though? A
Any-
surfboard made out of glass?
Anything's possible.
Would it float? Does glass float?
Yeah, if you make it the right way.
Yeah, like a
Like a hollow. Yeah.
Like I've never seen somebody
Do
surf a glass.
No, a glass surfboard.
I
But
guess
that would also be.
fiberglass is kind of glass,
Yeah.
but there's foam inside.
But it also could potentially be super dangerous because if you hit like some coral or if you took a gnarly
it would stab you to
human
death.
sushi.
Are we rolling? Okay,
All right.
nice. Well, thank you so much,
Yeah,
Karma.
brother.
Woo!
Let's go.
Thank you so much, Kevin, for having me over your house this weekend. Super beautiful here. So, what's happening here?
Man, we're here vibing. We're hanging. Me and my dear friend Lace Face Glass. We've gotten together, and Chris, you've decided to come along for the journey and paint a portal here at the studio. So, man, we're vibing out and we're creating some nice art, man.
Yeah, thank you. I'm happy to paint you a mural.
Yeah.
I think every glass studio deserves a good mural. So, you glass blowers out there, you know I'm artist for hire. I've actually painted for a lot of glass studios and galleries and stuff. I'm getting more and more into the glass scene. But what are you doing with Lace?
Yeah, so me and Lace, man, we are creating a piece that's inspired on your art. You know, and so yeah, we're doing some fun, inspiration through different media. And since we had you in house, and Lacey had the idea that we should create based on your art, and yeah, I thought that was a wonderful idea.
Who is Laceface?
Man, that's a long story, but man, in a short nutshell, Laceface is a dear friend of mine and a creator who has been in the industry for 20 years, pursuing her path and really shining her light. She's a real great person and a real wonderful artist. So Laceface Glass, definitely check her out.
Second generation glass blower.
Second generation lamp worker, absolutely. We
From Oregon, but now in Texas, right?
Austin, Texas. Yep.
Yeah, really nice person. I'm really excited to see you guys build something inspired on my art. What about this studio? How long have you had this studio? How hot does it get in here? What's this place?
So yeah, this is the manifestation. I call it the manifestation because this is like the pinnacle of what I feel like a glass studio could be. And we're here in my glass studio. It gets super duper hot in here. And, that's why we've got all the ventilation and everything. But yeah, we're here in Asheville, North Carolina at the manifestation.
What's this elephant trunk situation?
Yeah, so this is, I call this, because it looks like something that might come up from like a Dr. Seuss book or something, I call it the snoozler because it just seems like something, but it's basically just a AC unit that I've crudely ducted up, and that ducting comes down and directs that AC right on me as I'm working, so that way when I'm, getting all melty, I don't get melty.
Does do glass blowers in general get so hot and sweaty that you guys are a healthy tribe of artists that constantly detox?
there is a constant detox. You know, we're constantly in the sweat lodge, and I think that allows actually some people to go harder. I think all of us, to go harder on our bodies because of that. Like, we are constantly being tempered. Like, my joke is that I'm being cooked, and that by the end of my life, I'll probably be well done, you know? Like, I'm being slowly cooked. And this, you know, it's just like, honestly, it's just like, I've always looked at it just as the cold plunge. You know, the cold plunge that's going around right now that's so popular, and what does it do? It puts you in an uncomfortable situation and builds that resilience and tolerance for your body. So in the same way, I feel like acclimating to the heat and the uncomfortable constant sweating and having to be aware of hydrating is a good tempering thing for sure.
Yeah, nice. How long have you been out here in Asheville?
I've been living here for about, since 2013, so about 10 years now.
Okay.
Yeah.
How is it?
I love it, man. I love it. Asheville's, we sometimes call it Hashville because it's just got such a good, kind vibe. And, you know, I was telling you when you landed, trying to describe the place, it's a little bit like an East Coast Boulder. And, you know, you'll be driving around and see Tibetan prayer flags and different things. So you'll know that you're in a place with like minds pretty quickly around Asheville.
Lots of graffiti and street art here. I'd say Boulder can hold a candle to the amount of street art that you guys got here.
Yeah, it's a blessing, man. We're surrounded by makers, you know, and we have a huge population of graffiti writers and, you know, world-renowned crews. We have the Lord's crew here in town, and, you know, and we have young other crews that are up and coming and doing mostly tagging, but people want it out here. They want to create, and they want to be heard. And so it's a beautiful thing to see that when you walk down the street around here.
Yeah, you took me to the River Arts District.
Yep.
The RAD.
Yep, we call it the RAD, absolutely.
Really cool. So many cool murals. I want to go and paint something there if I got some paint left.
Yeah,
and there was like a do-it-yourself skate park.
Totally.
Really good vibe.
Yeah, the Foundation Skate Park. So, yeah, it's definitely something that if you have the time in, even if it's just a quick little, you know, something, man, that'd be fun to tag up.
Yeah, totally. What about, so there's a good art scene. Lots of visionary artists live here. What about the glass scene? What's the situation with glass here?
The glass scene is, you know, alive and well here. It thrives quite well. A lot of people don't know that there's this is the second or it goes back and forth between the first and second numbers of glass blowers per capita. That's why Mountain Glass, one of the main distributors of wholesale glass, has moved here to Asheville, and they moved here about almost 15 years ago now. So their two hubs are here and in Eugene, Oregon. Okay. And so those are usually the two places considered. And Eugene, I would say, has more notable glass blowers and more well-known glass blowers, whereas Asheville has many unknown and unsung, super talented people. And oftentimes they fill the positions of stocking the shelves at head shops. They might make really nice pieces, but they might not have built a name, and they might not want a name. Many glass blowers here, there's you know, literally over 100 glass blowers here in town, and most of them don't want to have any form of social media representation. We have distributors that live here in town, and they take the glass all around. Okay. So
some people rather be anonymous?
Yeah, they'd rather not, you know, spend the time to make big pieces that maybe express more. They'd rather make more simple pieces that's just your average when you walk into a shop and say, hey, I have $50 to spend, you know, or I have $30 to spend. You know, they might make these, you know, more simple everyday items, but
not everybody wants to do pipes that are thousands of dollars.
That's right. That's right. That's a more select group of people. And so I would say, you know, even though we have so many glass blowers, just like Eugene does, Eugene has the well-known glass blowers that do want a name and are making, you know, the high-end strata of glass art. Yeah.
So it's a different kind of vibe, and you go some shout-outs to local glass blowers.
Absolutely, man. I mean, my people here in town, I've got, you know, my buddy Baller Jar, who he's been a dear friend for years. Justin Freeman Glass is a friend of mine, and honestly, the list is too countless to name, but there's many talented friends that I have here in town. So yeah, shout out Asheville for being such a great creation space.
Yeah, nice. And you're originally from Georgia, right?
Yeah, Atlanta, Georgia.
How was that?
Yeah, man, it was good, man. It was hot, but yeah, 30 minutes northeast of Atlanta, so I was more in the suburbs of things and stuff. But yeah, Atlanta's where I call home, and I moved up here because in Atlanta there was really no thriving glass scene. There was a few people doing it, but it wasn't something where you could get together with other glass blowers. And so I'd come up here to sell my glass to the distributors that I had mentioned and some of the wholesalers up here. And so it just became a burden to drive up from Atlanta every other week to get a paycheck. And also I'd be up here, in line checking out at the glass store, and there'd be other glass blowers, and they'd say, hey, come over and melt, and let's make something. And that wasn't happening in Atlanta where I was at. And so I was like, okay, let's go ahead and make a change. But yeah, Atlanta's great, man. It's my heart. And yeah, it's a great place, man. It brought hip hop into my life, and and it's the place I was born. So respect ATL.
Nice. You were friends out there with a former guest of our show, Chris D.
Oh yeah,
and
absolutely.
Also David Hale, who are homies who have collaborated. Tell me about your friendship with those two beautiful people.
Big respect to both those beautiful people, man. So David and Chris were people that came into my life as painters, and as I appreciated their art at first, and
where did you see him first?
Yeah, so I first saw him at in a reggae band. They were actually live performance painting for a reggae band that was popular in Athens, Georgia between like 2003 and 2013, and they were called Dub Conscious.
Okay, nice.
Yes, and Chris, I knew Chris also from painting with Sound Tribe Sector 9. Mm-hmm. So I would go see Sound Tribe in the early 2000s in Athens, Georgia, and Sound Tribe, obviously wasn't as big back then, and they would put giant crystals all along the stage. They'd have a huge crystal specimen, and Chris D would be up there working his magic. And he was his medium was more paint back then, and he was just painting just beautiful, colorful, sacred geometric patterns, and so instantly drew me in. And when I got to get to know him riding around with Dub Conscious on their bus or following them around, got to find another kindred spirit in this life. Chris is super in tune, and he's always had a vision. He's always had been an independent soul. Like I'll check in on what's Chris doing in life, and he's down in South America, and he's world traveling, and so big respect, Christy. And David Hale, I had more of an intimate relationship with and got more close with. He
painted this beautiful mural we got in front of us.
Yes, absolutely, man. And David is, a dear brother in arms. He painted a lot more with Dub Conscious, and I think I saw them the better part of 120 times, Like I traveled all around with them for years, and me and David just have had so many long talks, traveling around the country, seeing Groundation and other reggae music. So, David's another one, man. Always has had a vision for what he's wanted, and he's been able to create an ecosystem around him that is totally focused on that vision. And he's actually, he's been a huge inspiration on my art path, just to see what's possible, and the way that he's done his prints and then moved to mural work, and he's painted everything from hospitals to just my studio. So he's a very humble dude with a
very nice,
super pure heart, man. I love David and his
very
family,
talented. So. And I finally met him last year at a show he had in Lyons, Colorado, and I just bought a woodcut, but
beautiful.
Maybe one day I'll have an actual painting.
Yes,
definitely got to get him on the show, but I always prefer to go into the studio of artists. I rather wait and hold back till the perfect opportunity to be in the energy of the guest.
Yes.
So that's cool that you hang out with them. So you're big into reggae?
Oh man, I love reggae, man. Reggae has been a huge part of my path, and just a huge part of the vehicle for knowledge, and consciousness. you know, and so it's been something that, you know, everybody loves to get stoned, you know, and if you love to get stoned and you love to, you know, consume cannabis enough, you know, you'll bump into reggae, and, you know, that's the thing that I love about the same thing I love about reggae is the same thing I love about hip hop. It's just a consciousness that, you know, allows for while we're in that meditative state to just give us a little and wake us up, you know, and give us a little work, you know, grist for the mill. So
Yeah, tell me about hip hop.
oh man, hip hop saved my life, man.
Uh-huh.
You know, wise man once said, "Rap is something you do, but hip hop is how you live." And so, if hip is to know and hop is a form of movement, hip hop is conscious movement, and that's something that, you know, KRS taught me. And, you know, basically, hip hop found me at a time in my life when it was super pivotal. I was 17. I got into a lot of trouble, you know, just smoking herb, but also just getting into fights and staying out late and just being a delinquent kid. And that led me to being on probation. And then, you know, me still acting out led me to being taken by the state. So the cops got called, and the judge decided that my parents couldn't control me. So I had to go to an orphanage. I had to go to a children's shelter.
No.
Yeah, so the state took custody of me when I was 16. And so when I was 17, I had a really awesome lawyer. Shout out Rodney Harris. Never forget this guy, because he looked at me when I walked into his office and he talked to me for a minute, and he's like, "Man," he's like, "the confidence level you have, you're put together." He goes, "There's a lot of different paths that you could do through this, but I think you should emancipate yourself as an adult and have the state recognize you as an adult. You'll have to know what kind of job you have. You have to find a residence. You have to do a lot of different things, but, you know, I think you should emancipate yourself." And so I got in touch with a girl that I went to high school with, and she was like, "Come stay on my couch. Like, you can use my residence. I have a place," you know. And so her and another girl and a guy from my high school all had they were all roommates, and they were a couple of years older than me. So they were like, "Yeah, come use." So I had to re-enroll in high school. I had to use that as a residence. I had to get a job. But once I could prove all those things could be in line, I was emancipated after I was 17. So I went out into the world at 17, and I basically bumped into hip hop. And hip hop was this, you know, it was right at a time where I just tried psychedelics for the first time, and I was really open. And, you know, I found this album by KRS-One called Spiritually Minded. And it was, you know, it was really just, you know, just a wake-up call. How you living? Why are you living that way? You know, and KRS-One is somebody who's, you know, one of the first people who was actually pictured on the cover of an album with guns. He had his first album outside of BDP was Criminally Minded. And so he was, you know, he's done the journey. He's been
The gangster stuff.
Yeah, he's done gangster stuff, and he's come to the spiritual stuff. So hearing that, you know, I didn't know it at that time, but would become a super big part of my path, and a super, you know, a big part of, you know, the consciousness I seek on a daily basis. So
Yeah. We're in the week or the year of 50 years of hip hop. So we're reminiscing on the story. It seems like hip hop could be both positive and conscious. Is like, hey, this is what's happening. Here's where we're at. Here's what we should do to liberate ourselves from Babylon system. But also, it seems like it's being coerced by Babylon system, and it's turned to negativity, superficiality, violence, misogynism. Like so much negativity has been thrown into hip hop in the past and still today.
Without a doubt, man.
How do you observe that? Do you think it's just part of the equation? As humans, we will express everything in our path, or do you feel there's some kind of political manipulation of hip hop?
You know, I think both of those things could be at play, but the elders of hip hop, you know, as they've taught me through their different literature, you know, KRS-One has written a book, The Gospel of Hip Hop, which I own and study, and DJ Kool Herc is pretty vocal on the state of hip hop, and the way that the elders would observe and understand that is that, you know, hip hop is the musical aspect of the expression, but what you're referring to is rap music product.
Right.
You know, what you're because
hip hop is the 5 elements of a culture.
The nine elements, yes.
All right.
Yes, and so you know, and which includes all aspects of really being a human: breaking, emceeing, DJ, and those are the 5 elements, those 5 main elements. But then you've got like hip hop, street fashion, street entrepreneurialism, you know, and so and these things are also from the street. Like, you know, at a point, hip hop could have gotten you in trouble, but now hip hop can save you and bring your business back to life. And that's something that, you know, KRS-One said from the early 2000s. And so in this book, you know, he outlines that, you know, in the beginning, the voice in the wilderness, the conscious voice, the same voice that's in reggae music. You know, if you think back to the 80s and you think about Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five, you know, and how it was a little bit more conscious, it was saying, broken glass everywhere. People pissing on the stairs, they just don't care. I can't take the smell, I can't take the noise. No money to move out, I guess I got no choice. Rats in the front room, roaches in the back. Junkie in the alley with a baseball bat. I tried to get away, but I can't get far because the man with the tow truck repossessed my car. Don't push me. Like, it was a cry. Just like the Wailers were called the Wailers because there were so many babies weeping and wailing where they tried to practice that the sound of crying was louder than the music.
The sufferation of the people who've been disempowered in this world. And that's this outcry.
Absolutely.
And I feel like that's graffiti too. Graffiti was like, God damn it, I also exist. Here's my fucking name everywhere to you. Acknowledge my existence too. I'm not meaningless. I'm here.
Absolutely. Hieroglyphics of the modern day that only the initiate with the right eye, with the hip hop eye could see. Oh, wow. Okay, look who's writing over here. Oh, he's in town? Wait, he's back in town? You know, and so it's this communication and this outcry, this voice of consciousness. And so that's how hip hop started. And you see the same thing in reggae music with dancehall. You see the progression. You see reggae music now is so flashy in the dancehall, but how did it start? Everybody was saying the same thing. We can overcome, you know, and we can do more. We can rise up. And so that voice of hip hop, you know, that has turned in over the years. See, because the thing was there's no abundance. We're living in poverty. Life is terrible. We're shooting each other. People are hurting each other. And then that was able to build into something that was, you know, profitable. And then that profit was able to express this rap music product that you refer to, which is more, you know, like you say, my rims, my car, my clothes, you know, and all this material aspect that comes with it. And this is, you know, this is like the thing about an art form that can happen, right? Like heavy metal. It was just in the garage, like everyone was just, oh no, and then it gets commercialized, and then you listen to metal now, and it's a far cry. You know, I bet if we talked to the elders of metal, you know, if we talked to Gwar and Metallica, and we talked to Pantera and Sepultura, what would they say about the state of metal? You know, and so that's what happens to an art form. It gets kind of created, and it has this purity, and it has this essence that it starts in, and then it comes out of the garage, and then it's
commercialized.
Yes.
How would you compare that to glass that started as illegal art of illegal flower smoking, and now that flower and weed is getting legalized, maybe glass will get into the mainstream?
The very same way. It's no different. It's not, you know, immune to that, you know, and like glass in its infancy, you know, held no respect, both just for what it was and for it, you know, how it represented in the material world price-wise.
How it was utilized to break the law.
Yeah. And so, and then as it's grown and as it's been more and more commercially accepted, you know, you see that, so, you know, celebrities are embracing cannabis and having their own cannabis brands that never would have done that in the past, that didn't have maybe the courage to be illegal, but believe in cannabis privately. And so now that things are being legalized and people can be themselves openly, then that has encouraged the expression of the glass in many different facets, to the point where, you know, we as pipe makers and high-end pipe makers can express in so many different ways that it's definitely being commercialized, and that's part of the process of this art form, you know, evolving and doing its thing. Because we were just the, you know, punks in the garage, and I wasn't around for that phase. I've been doing it 12 years, you know, but I came into it when Operation Pipe Dreams had happened like 6 years ago, I believe, or something. So it was like
What is Operation Pipe Dream?
Operation Pipe Dreams was like a big push by the government to try to stop paraphernalia production.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, to stop people making glass pipes because you could always openly, because America is, so based on personal freedoms, there was never a way to outlaw the glass pipe.
Right.
So what they would do is you'd have to mark, like everything when I first got into making glass pipes, you had to mark it for tobacco use only. So you'd have to, just mark that, and then that's what everybody went into the store under the guise of. And if you said the word bong, you'd be asked to leave the store.
Wow.
Like if you said,
what year is this?
This is, okay, so this is from year 1999, 2000 to all the way up to probably about 2015.
Yeah.
And now most places have a legal state near them, or their state is considering legalization, or CBD is okay. That I think it's kind of passe now, and people aren't so strict on it. But back in the day, if you were in a store and you said, "Oh man, that's a sweet bong," they'd say, "Okay, please leave," because you were insinuating that this was not a tobacco pipe, but this was a marijuana pipe.
Totally. That's so trippy that the art that one would do can't even be called by a name and has to be kept kind of hush-hush because of its relationship with an illegal substance.
And there's plenty of glass blowers and weed smokers that actually that'd be great. Why not? There's plenty of glass blowers and there's plenty of weed smokers that use tobacco, but a lot of them don't. And a lot of glass blowers, don't want this cancer-causing thing to be, associated with their art. So it was also painful, to be like, oh, this is for tobacco use only, and have to put that on there just to appease a government that was strict on a plant.
Does every glass blower smoke weed?
No. No, I would say...
Is it like a must? Like, are you like a lame glass blower if you don't actually use the weed that your pipe is supposed to be used for?
That's not for me to decide. I don't carry that, criticism of whether or not you smoke or not. I've always found, like, in my personal journey that the times that I smoke less, as long as I have something that I'm working with that I'm totally confident in the function, it's no problem. But as you're trying new mechanisms and as you're trying different ways to smoke, it increasingly benefits the glass artist to know why you're doing what you're doing.
Because you're testing the product.
Exactly. You're testing it, and right there on the spot you can tell, not just by putting water in it and pulling it, but you can see, oh man, that doesn't quite work the way I want it to, or that doesn't, okay, let me remake another one. Whereas, another glass blower may not. That being said, some of the highest level and most proficient glass blowers that I've met don't smoke. So, I don't, and people love their art, celebrate it, collect it. And so, I don't think that that's a qualifier for making pipes.
And what about you? You like herb? You like it in the shape of hash? What has that been in your life?
Yeah, so I'll smoke herb in any form. I've aligned myself with this plant, and it's the first thing that I came in contact with that had the same efficacy and similar effects as to the ADHD medication that I was on when I was a young man. And that just made me feel so garbage, and I'd always get in trouble for not taking it. I would like sneak it and throw it in the bushes, and they'd catch me on the camera, and I'd get in trouble because it did help me behave and to focus my energy, because I'm always up here, and I'm always, as you've gotten to see over the past few days, I'm super talkative, and herb just grounds me down. So any form is good with me, but I do prefer hash, and if I'm able to get particular and find it, hash rosin is more preferable, which is basically, when they take the plant, everyone knows that cannabis has little crystals on it, and within those crystals, that's those trichromes is what they're called. Those things contain all of the active THC, and there's other THCs and there's other benefits throughout the plant, but the most psychoactive parts are in those glands. And so by putting the plant into water and stirring it with ice, you are able to separate those trichromes. And then they take those trichromes and then press them with heat and pressure. And so it's a totally non-solvent. You know, some of the hash that's been made throughout the years has been made with solvents, butane and propane and pentane. And so, you know, it's one of those things that I really do, you know, think it'll be, I looked at my generation before this and I said, why did you guys try all those crazy, what were you doing? You're smoking, you hear people, PCP back in the 70s and all this stuff, and you think they were crazy, what were they thinking? But I do maybe look back at my cannabis journey where they were using so many solvents and things as a time where I'll look back and go like, what was I thinking? I was just trying to get high on cannabis, but it was, and so hash rosin is beautiful because it's totally natural, and created with heat, pressure, and love.
So it's just the concentration and
Yep.
further concentration, and it gets smaller and smaller. And I was asking you a couple of days ago, will one day weed just disappear and be invisible and be an essence that you just like capture?
I love that. I love that thought construct because that seems to be what cannabis is doing. It's kind of coming in a smaller and smaller, and it was like pretty amazing when you took these pounds that were selling for, at the time, probably $3,000 to $5,000, depending on where you were at, and then turning them into this little slab of hash, that would sell for double the price, and so that was already pretty fascinating, to see that happen. And then now to see, single grams of hash rosin sell anywhere between, $40 and $120, depending on who it is, what it is, and all that. And so it's like very fascinating. This little boop, has so much psychoactive material in there. But yeah, it's just getting more and more concentrated to the point where it'll just be the head of a pin, get you high for a week.
That's cool. I'm happy that you got that medicine to help you out with your ADHD. I can't even say that. Well, whenever it's a word with a bunch of letters, I always get the letters wrong. Thank you so much, dear. Woo,
Yes,
coffee.
man, it's a blessing to have.
I can say coffee though. Coffee. If it would be like COFFE, then like my brain will break. So we recently hanged out a little bit at the Michigan Glass Project in Detroit.
Yep.
We that was like a charity event. I was painting a mural, and you were making some glass. You want
Yes.
to tell us a little bit about what this Michigan Glass Project is and what
Yeah.
were you doing exactly?
Yeah, man. So the Michigan Glass Project is a thing where, all the homies come together and we all have the same purpose of trying to generate money for children who are seeking art, And basically in Michigan, with everything that's happened, the city's gotten worse and worse over the years. One of the ways they cut budgets at the schools is to remove art programs from the city schools. And so there's a beautiful program called Art Road Detroit, and Allison and Drew from the Michigan Project, they've aligned with this company, Art Road Detroit. And so, yeah, for 3 days, glassblowers come together and we just go absolutely bonkers, man. We just work as hard as we can, and we just, try to do as many cool things. And because we're all there, it's so rare to have all the glassblowers in the industry together, or many of them together, and creating. Because most times when we're all together, it can be a trade show, or it can be, maybe celebrating a couple artists, or maybe at one of their shows. But it's very rare. It's not often that we get together and we're all melting at the same time.
And it's also a different intention, because in a trade show, you're trying to sell something. Here, you're trying to sell, but you're not for your own profit. It's to give to a charity.
That's right. That's right. And so it's that just, brings that much more intention, and it brings that much more passion to the project, because when you see some of the smiles on these kids' faces and the fact that they're getting to express themselves, and when we know, people like me and you, the initiated, we know what art can do for a life, It can save, it can beautify, and bring so much abundance in so many different faculties, and bring so much healing. And so in that way, I'm very passionate about getting up there and being a part of that in whatever capacity I can. And what happens is we usually work 12 to 14 hour days the first 2 days, and then the last day is usually a big push, and everyone kind of starts to focus, that everyone that is a part of the bigger project that old Maestro Banjo always conducts, then we all focus in on that project, and we're trying to complete a project that would normally take 14, 20 days in a period of 3. Yeah. And so we'll stay up, all night until the project is done. And in this case, we broke the record this year, and we stayed up. We got there at 12 o'clock on Sunday, and we didn't leave until 2:30, 3 o'clock on Monday. And so we blew glass just straight on through.
It's beautiful. I'm gonna just turn off this TV. The signal went off. Yeah, and meanwhile, just because I know you don't notice it so much because you're blowing glass nonstop. Meanwhile, there's like a whole different warehouse space with a bunch of live painters painting their canvases that also go out to auction. Yes. I was the one muralist. I had a giant wall that I was painting, also, not charging the event. As part of a performance to attract people, and there's a concert with a stage, and so people come, and they, there's like such a vibe. It's like a mini festival, but all towards raising these funds for kids to have art. Yeah, which is such a good intention.
Awesome. I mean, it just makes you smile just thinking about it, And
totally.
So, yeah, it's a blessing, man.
And it was fun that I finished my mural that Monday morning or early afternoon. And just as I was finishing the last piece, I hear people going "Ah!" and clapping far away. It's like, somebody is appreciating my work. So nice. But really, it was like you guys finishing some glass contraption and everybody being stoked and celebrating that. Yeah. So it's funny that we finished at the same time.
Yeah, it makes sense because yes, we do celebrate what you did up there, man. That was such a wonderful thing and such a wonderful serendipity up there. But yeah, you went really hard, man. That was, and for 3 days time, man, you guys really pulled it together. I was gonna say
that hand gets crunchy.
Oh man.
So your collab was with Banjo and with
So there were two, because Banjo's wild like that. There were two main pieces this year, two big Banjo Debbie pieces, and one was a collaboration with Salt, Nico Cray, AKM, of course Banjo, Windstar, and maybe, I hope I'm not leaving anybody out, but that was one team. And then at a certain point at the end, on Saturday, in the middle of Saturday, he realized that everyone was going to be taking this from him and decorating it in their own style.
He had done his part.
And so he was like, let's start another one. Yeah. And so we utilized my Karma stack that I lovingly call my prep. And so we took this rainbow pattern that I use and we started handing it out and manipulating it. And so we pulled in, or I should say he pulled in, he had the idea to work with Yushin, myself, and Avatar Glass. And so we had a second project, and as well as AKM. And so we had a second project going as well on the side. And that project still hasn't been finished. We were able to get that project right up into the line, but at a certain point at about 7 a.m. on Monday morning, we realized that both weren't going to be finished if we kept on the path, and that we were going to have to stay up way long. And so we decided to put the one away, and then Banjo's got that back in Arkansas, and he's going to be finishing that one. And so the charity auctions that go on for the project, they happen over a 2-month period or 3-month period sometimes, or maybe even longer.
So people can still bid on it?
Yes. So what happens is the main piece that did get finished, that still has not been auctioned either. And what has been auctioned is all the more smaller pieces, the pendants and the collaborative tubes. And so, we take full advantage of everyone being together, and we just get right together. And hey, what if I took this? And if you see something lying around, it's not absurd to, normally it's not commonplace to walk into a glass studio and ask a glass artist, hey man, I really like that section. Would you want to do something with it? It's well to assume that if you're working with a high level or a creator of any kind, that they've got a plan and a project. But at the Michigan project, all bets are off kind of thing. And if you see
Everybody plays with everybody.
yes, and you say, oh hey man, could I work with this? And they go, oh hey, at the Michigan Project they would say, oh no, this is for someone else, but I'll make you one, or something. Everyone really tries to make it a point to.
Wow, it seems like the glass community is so collaborative and friendly. It's like you share each other's techniques and secrets very openly.
Yes.
Is there any competitive vibes where I'm like, or is there anybody who's like, no, I don't want to share my secrets, or no, I don't want to play with you guys and keep the energy? Is that like almost like a no-no?
No, all of that. I mean, as the industry started, everything was more secretive. Like 10 years before I got into it, let's say 20 years ago or 25 years ago, there were few lamp workers. So everything was secretive. And the teachers that I had when I started, they would tell me of their teachers who would, get the glass to a certain point and say, okay, can you please leave the room? I'm gonna do the, this is where I fume the glass, or this is where I do, adhere the fume, melt the fume in, whatever they deem to be a secret technique. And, technique is still something that gets passed around a lot and people try a lot. And over and over the years, it's honestly like, it reminds me of hip hop, where in the early stages of hip hop, if you were a biter, you'd get called a biter. You would just get openly lambasted, and that's kind of the generation I came into. Is like, you wouldn't really want to like mash up too tough on someone else's techniques because you'd just get called out for it. You would get teased for it, and people wouldn't appreciate you fully. But as we were talking about before, at some point you've got to kind of try different things to grow as a person. And so that's always been openly tolerated. And I would say now glass is at a point where everybody is like totally cool. Like, yeah, take it, just do it, whatever. And so people aren't as protective. But all of that, what you mentioned, exists. All the, every level of humility and humbleness and ego and competition and like, gossipness and talk, that all exists. All that exists. The thing that I think keeps our industry, very moving forward and very easy to see that it's like a friendly group of people. It reminds me of like the Grateful Dead, where, if you had a hustle, like if you saw somebody had, let's say you were selling hat pins, or let's say you were selling dollar grilled cheese on tour, and you came out with another deadhead, it wasn't like, man, we should throw fists about this. It's like, but you would just talk about it. It's like, hey, if I go down a couple, yeah, okay, no, I'll go down a couple, and then like spread out because there's enough money out here for everybody. And so in that way, the thing that's kept the glass scene real super cool in my estimation is like the word friendly in front of competition. Yeah. Because that's what's developed pockets. Like we have glass scenes, like we have the Oregon scene, we have the Colorado scene, the Philadelphia scene, pockets of homies that are pushing on each other. Hey, look what I did here. Look at this though, I'm balled out like this. Oh, watch this. And so it's the word friendly in front is what keeps the glass scene in my estimation. And so, yeah, man, like that friendly competition that says like, and kind of like in the graffiti yard where like, and most graffiti writers aren't going to be ready to pull a gun on you for going over them in the yard. Right. But what is the requirement? Better be cooler than what right? And so in that way, it's like, I don't think anyone has a problem mashing techniques and stuff, but it's always like, man, what are you doing with it? Better be cool, And so it's like, and I think that's good to have, where you have someone holding you accountable for, it's like, don't just take this and whatever, like. Right,
well, that's beautiful. It seems like a very harmonious, symbiotic growth of different tentacles, like building on each other, and you step on somebody else's tentacle and you build your own tentacle, and then somebody else can step on that to grow. But it's like, yes, it's kind of like a human pyramid almost, like when people, gotta build on each other. But yeah, it's beautiful. Like sometimes I wonder if by absorbing somebody else's style or technique, you're taking away that person's individuality. But that's the urge that person's like, I gotta keep on stepping up and getting 2 steps ahead in my personal expression, so that when people bite me, they can't even catch me because I'm already on the next thing.
That's right. And I feel like, some people are more open to trying new styles and doing new things often. And you know, I've noticed that the people who most openly will take are also the first, when they see their style taken, are the first to be like, good job, you know, and they'll be congratulating. So it's a mindset, and it's how you approach the medium, and it's how you approach life, you know. But in that way, I feel like it's important to me to try to keep my own style, whatever, you know, even if my style is not as unique as the next guy, I always say, whatever little amount of style and vibe I got going, I'm going to keep true to that and try to stay focused, because you got people like my homie Salt, and I was telling you about him. He like makes, I got a little piece from him right here. This is a little piece he made for me down in Texas when we were working together. And it's got these eyes and it's got these teeth on it, and it's really he makes them, he says, you know, especially back in the day when these pieces were illegal, like these things need protection, like they're trying to be confiscated, and you know, the laws come, people are trying to take these away from us, and so these are these little creatures that need to protect you.
So he's kind of like putting in some like shamanic alchemical code on it to protect the vessel itself.
Yes, and the beautiful thing I love about Salt is he doesn't know he's a shaman. Like you'll tell him, you'll say, like, you'll be like, Lucan, his name's Lucan. You'll be like, Lucan, why are you putting the eyes and teeth on everything, bro? Because I'm curious. I want to know. I'm like you, where you have the podcast. I've been running a non broadcasted podcast just because I'm curious. Interviewing my friends traveling the country. I'm like, Lucan, why do you have eyes and teeth on all your stuff? And and I know they're to be protected, but how do you know? Like, you'll say you're birthing a creature, but how do you know, like, what's your process to bringing that thing to this dimension? He's like, bringing it to this dimension? Well, I just look at it, it talks to me and tells me a little story, and he's like from Texas. He's like, I just listen into it, and well, just telling me, oh, not there, Papa, put the eye over here. And I'm like, and me and Banjo, people who are initiated, were like, he's a shaman, like he's a total channeler, and he's just like, I don't know, but he has a bit of a condition where when he looks at textures and different things, even as a little kid, he said eyes and teeth and faces popped out. Like, he'd see a wrinkly blanket.
Oh, what's that called?
It has a name.
It has a name.
It has a name. And so I was like, oh, wow, I know that, I know that thing.
Yeah.
But through his long, epic journey, and he's one of the people I look to the most just for longevity, for staying true and staying humble, and creating also on like an epic scale, and having an ability to just create. He's one of the most prolific. If you give like time for time, he will utilize every minute, and he'll make like some of the biggest pieces, in the industry, like, or he could if he wanted. And so he's so prolific in that way. But it's like, it's definitely something that people have admired, and then people have mimicked, and he's taught many, many classes. And so there's many, many people in the industry that create with eyes, teeth, and texture, down to the point where there's people who, directly mimic some of his, because he has many, many functional styles. He created a particular type of perk in the industry and did something no one ever did that people mimic all the time. And so he's got people who mimic it right down to the actual perks and all the different things. So,
and that doesn't hurt?
No, well, here's what I'm getting to. It's like, I believe it's a perspective thing, because, and I think, we would want to say, wow, that hurts, because look what it does, it's taken away. But what it has done for Salt, what I've observed, and I don't know, we'd have to talk to Salt to know the answer, but what I have observed with his career is these people strengthen and embolster, because he hasn't gone away. He stayed prolific and stayed creating and stayed relevant and stayed, and he calls it planting his flag. He's like, I still want to every day wake up and do this. I plant my flag every day. And so he's planting that flag, and he's out there being Salt. Everyone loves Salt. Everyone knows Salt. Yeah. So when I asked, like, through my glass journey, I didn't know Salt initially. I wasn't even an Instagram guy or social media guy, and I wasn't huge on the like glasspipes.org days. So I wasn't aware, but I saw a lot of eyes and teeth and different weird stuff. So when I, through my journey, would ask people, hey, why do you create like this? That's where I became aware of his art. They'd say, I took a class from Salt.
Yeah.
And so then I, meet these guys, and then I meet Salt, and I go, "Why you do this?" And he's like, "Well, just, man, I see these little eyes and teeth. They talk to me, and I just make these little creatures." And that's genuine. That's something that's real.
It must be beautiful to create something and let it go and let people use it, but it is also nice that people know, oh, this came from
his
this style. I would think kind of like a Guy Aitchison tattoo, or if you know him.
I'm not familiar.
He created the whole biomechanical style of tattooing.
Okay.
Like he's the root of that.
Wow.
And now there's like hundreds to thousands of biomechanical tattoo artists, but they all know it came from one person, Guy Aitchison. So he's let it go and he's at peace with it, but also he's like the G of that branch of the tree.
That is Salt. He's been blowing glass for 22 years, and if you're putting eyes and teeth in that way and texturing, it's because you admire Salt.
Right.
And so that's one of those things, like there is still a healthy respect for, for that biting, because even though people will do it and people will choose to take on some of your creation styles, the collectors, the other glass artists, there's a healthy respect for the origin from with which it came. And
is there like a shout out system or requisite or
No, there's
no.
not.
The glass blowers
that always
kinda
feels
know.
good though. That always feels good if you're, But at the end of the day, like they say, as I've created my rainbow style now, and that's the all unifying concept that I serve my ministry on.
Yeah.
But at this moment, but I've had many different styles and points in my career of things I've created, and I've had, even on the small local scale, you have people take from you or take an idea and a concept, and they say like copying is the most sincere form of flattery, and I always felt like, man, maybe that person, they didn't have their art bit, or whatever. But at the end of the day, I think it's a really important lesson, and a lesson that you will have to go through as an artist. Period. In a story. The further and further you climb, the more and more you realize, because most people this isn't a problem, like that many artists had, but like what did Salvador Dali say? Like a good artist steals and a great artist replicates, or something.
No, it steals without being noticed or something like that.
It's like something to the effect of like, it's like,
we're all building upon culture, but you want to do it. Like if you're going to take somebody's vibes, as you said, you got to like improve it, take it further, create it into your own uniqueness.
Bring it to a new space. And I think that people like Salt and people like, Banjo, or people who have, and maybe AKM, I'm not sure. But like people who have their own definitive style of sculpting, and I'm sure they start their classes with like, hey, if you came to learn to sculpt, to learn cool techniques and learn application, this is for you. If you came to make this exactly,
because like if somebody else did a divvy, like a banjo style woman, people would be like, that's Banjo's thing. You can't just straight up do that.
And people have done it.
Oh yeah?
Oh yeah, people have done it. Like lesser known artists I've seen do it, you know what I mean? And try to just like, oh man, but my always thing is like, oh, good luck. Like you're gonna try to make something Banjo made, and like, you're gonna spend the time Banjo spent refining that positioning and that mentality and that meaningful expression and pose. So you see people try to imitate, high level maestros, and it's just a mess, and so it's one of those things where it's like, okay, cool. Like I hope that brought you personal self-satisfaction, like doesn't do much for me, and I don't know what it does for the artist, but like, I've had people directly replicate what I was doing, with, just pendant style, colorways, name, like all the way down, like redo and show me and be so excited to show me and be like, look what I did. I was inspired by what you did. And I hope we can collaborate one day, and does
that stoke you to collaborate with that person, or be like,
Oh no, in that moment, it gives you as a human on the human journey and on the artist path, that really presents you with an opportunity. And oftentimes we get this in life, right? Where in that moment, you go, should I say what I'm really thinking, or should I be
polite?
Yeah, should I be polite? And and you wrestle with that, because sometimes you be polite and you go, man, I'm so glad I was polite there.
Yeah.
And then sometimes you go back and you go, man, I wish I would have expressed my truth. I could have done it quietly and clearly. I could have done it in a meaningful way.
Right.
And so I took that opportunity to, and I I call it like to papa him or to daddy him or but I don't ever want to big dog anybody. I don't ever want anyone to feel like I'm just somebody, because, you know, in my path, I don't really feel like I am somebody in that way. Yeah. I feel like we are glass artists. We're celebrated within this community, but watch me walk to the store right here and see how many people realize me and care what I'm up to. Let's go to Walmart and see how many people stop us. Chris Dyer Karma, you know, it's like, your chances are better than mine, but even still, we exist in this ecosystem. And so I don't ever...
It's a small bubble.
Yeah, I don't ever want...
And it's a beautiful thing, because fuck ego.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. And so, in that way, you know, I'm always trying to, you know, align with, you know, humility, but, you know, I see that if you take this too seriously, like anything else, you know, it like becomes a wash, you know. And so
that's some words of wisdom, you know. I also sometimes wrestle with, like, when somebody bites me, like, oh, should I communicate with them that they're hurting my feelings because they're taking something that's a personal, intimate expression of my heart, and then they're making it their own, and they're growing as a popular artist where, like, they're taking away my uniqueness? Or should I just shut the fuck up, be polite, let them just be human and do their thing if they need to do that? Like, I don't know what's the correct thing sometimes, but I always feel like when I do communicate, there's hurt feelings, there's fights, and what do we resolve in the end?
Totally. I always try to bear witness to whatever extent I can to the container, you know, and see what is this container? What can it contain? Because some people, I've seen people, you know, bite or copy style and be very meaningful and very intentional. I'm going to take that. I'm going to do that. I'm going to rise to this place. I'm going to do this. And it's very meaningful and very well thought out. And you could feel it the whole way through. Whereas this young man, he was genuinely, he was like,
yeah, there was no bad intentions.
No, he was totally. And so what I chose to do in that moment was I said, hey man, so do you have a minute to talk? We can talk art and stuff. And so I walked around the trade room floor with him. And I'm like, okay, so when it comes to collaboration, right? Like, we're going to infuse each other's styles, right? But what you've done here is what I would have done.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I see a lot of what I would have already done, and I'm looking at those pieces, and I'm wondering where I could fit in, because you've kind of already done my job. Yeah. And he's like, no. And I'm like, no, man, listen. I'm not saying it like that. I'm saying because I think that you could take what I've done here and build onto something. Yeah. And that if you really go on that, we could for sure come back. But like, when I see you asking me to collaborate on these pieces, I see you have some nice forms and I see you have some nice shapes. But what I would do is I would bring the energy to it, and I would really infuse it with rainbows and Technicolor, and I would really put my intention into it. So, and it looks like you did that. You did a great job, you know? And so I chose to just praise him, but just let him know where I witnessed it, you know? And he was, you could tell he was like, in the beginning, upset, but then by the end of it, we had a big hug, and he was like, hey, thank you for taking a moment with me, Karma. You know?
I feel that's the kind thing to do, to be honest sometimes, because at the end, it's better for that person, because you're helping them grow into their uniqueness. In my art workshops, I'm always very much encouraging people not to paint like me. It's like, hey, you're learning from me, and I'll teach you my techniques, and I'll share all of my vibes. And I won't be mad if you grab this and run with my vibes a little bit as a stepping stone to finding your voice, but it's not in your favor to look like Chris Dyer.
Absolutely.
You know, it's in your favor to look like you, and finding your voice is why you're here with me. I want to fucking like hold you in my arms and raise you up so you can shine as the star that you are.
Absolutely.
And that's not me. I'm already me. So let's both shine as two stars in the sky.
And it makes it easier to do so. When you have somebody who's on his purpose and on his path and knows for sure who he is and why he came to the dance, isn't that easier to just, hey, look at this guy. He's my buddy. He's already doing this, you know, and that's what you've got going here with the podcast, right? Where you come and find people on the path of intention. And you're like, oh, hey, wow, okay, you already are doing this, creating your own ecosystem. And then you don't have to, you know, pull things out, because things are already happening in both of our ecosystems. And so
I'm just sitting here witnessing your beauty.
You're too kind, man.
So,
get out of here.
Banjo, he's a mutual friend. He's already been a guest on the show. You collaborated with him. It seems like Banjo's pieces are always like the center of a piece, like the unity. soul of it, and then things sprout out of it.
Yeah.
Which is a beautiful thing. It's almost like he's got this power and popularity and momentum, and by attaching your little spaceships to his, central, like each space tentacle arm just becomes even more powerful. Is there a goat in glass, or is it like a personal thing? Like, would Banjo be one of like the best glass artists, or there's no best glass artists, there's just different best artists in different ways? Like, where do you see Banjo in the glass world, and is there some kind of like,
Yeah, that's exactly, you kind of nailed it with the, fact that there's no greatest, there's no greatest of all time. But when we look at Michael Jordan, does everyone respect him? Does everybody know how hard he can dunk? Does everybody at some point in their career wanted to be him? That's my man Banjo. He's a modern day maestro. He's studied the medium to the point where he can manipulate it in the way that he sees fit. And he lands those spacecrafts, man. He'll take it out into deep orbit and he will land that down, and you will just wonder how it got to this dimension. And like, I'm a big fan of comedy, and then there's the comedians that people love, it's like Joe Rogan and all these people, you might say Dave Chappelle. Yeah, and then there's comedians' favorite comedians. And like, Dave Chappelle is a comedian's favorite comedian, but Joe Rogan is not a comedian's favorite comedian, if that makes sense. And the reason being is because, like, you can possibly throw maybe Joe Rogan by the end of his career, but you could possibly throw Dave Chappelle in with Richard Pryor, Eddie Murphy, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Steve Martin, whereas like Joe Rogan is epic and so amazing and has influenced our culture, and we wouldn't take nothing away.
Yeah.
But as far as on a strictly comedy level, his comedic prowess isn't that of, Chappelle.
Yeah, and he's not the top of the hierarchy, if it's a hierarchy.
That's right. And so that's where Banjo exists. Like, he's definitely he's in that Chappelle range. You know what I mean? Like, he's gonna go down in history. And there's like soft glass blowers, and there's borosilicate artists that are not pipe makers and are very well known in their own right, making super high end, whether paperweights or sculpture. And I've seen all of those people collect his art, and have them make him, special pieces. So yeah, Banjo's somebody that, definitely, holds that title of being one of the modern day maestros,
Aw.
Yeah.
Well, beautiful. Shouts out, Banjo. Yay! We love you, man.
Big love, Papa.
So we met in Miami.
That's right.
I was having a Galactic Gang event and exhibition, and you were out there doing some kind of bad boy activity. Please explain what was the art show you were part of and how you ended up at my art show.
Yeah, so basically there were a bunch of events down in Miami for the Art Basel that happens every year, which is just a huge exposition of many different artists from many different walks of life, right? And so as glass artists, we've, over the past few years, descended down onto Miami at that time. And there's a few different events that happen. And Banjo was part of the Bad Boys event. And it was basically, edgy glass blowers and edgy inspired glass. And that's been running for a couple years. That happens down in Miami. And also there's another event called Scope. And Scope is like,
it's the cool one.
yeah, it's like the big art event at large. So you'll see all kinds of...
These are art fairs.
Yeah, you'll see all kind of Nichos, and you'll see all kind of other artists in there. Yeah. Ron English might have been down there.
So there's a bunch of art fairs during that time, and Miami Art Basel is the big classy contemporary one, and Scope is more like the alternative,
edgy,
still big, and they come from all around the world, and these are like the biggest names of the edgy art world.
Yes.
So you guys had like a spot in there?
So yeah, there was a glass vendor called Glass to Grass that's down in Miami, and they were showcasing just a plethora of amazing art from this industry that we all created leading up to that. And so I had a couple pieces that were in that event. And so yeah, we were all bouncing around Miami all that weekend, just enjoying the Basel activities and just meeting new people, checking out cool art. Yeah.
Did you feel you, as a glass blower, hip hop hippie, Rasta, did you fit into that kind of classy art fair, like all these rich people like looking at art and buying? It's like, how did it feel in general? Because I feel awkward sometimes.
Yeah, I honestly like, so it's interesting, man, like, because I do have those disciplines, but I also have like other things that I'm thinking about when I'm around these people, like, wealthy people and highfalutin people and stuff. The way that they express themselves is different than the way I express myself, but it's the way that I get around when I get around impoverished or poor people. Like when I get around a houseless person and they don't have a place to stay, I think immediately, for the grace of God, there go I. Like, I one time I used to hand out socks to homeless people, and I asked a guy, like, what's got you out here, man? Like, what's the story, man? Is there anything I can do to help? And he said that he was at work at a sawmill in Tennessee. He worked at a sawmill. He said he was a hardworking man, and he said that he got a call, come to the emergency room, your wife and kids they just got into a bad car accident. He got to the hospital, and his 2 kids and his wife passed away.
Damn.
And he said, since then, my life just really hasn't been worth living. I don't know what to say. I'm an addict, and I was just like, it's like gives me goosebumps thinking about it, man. Like, you don't know the path anyone's walking. You don't know what a wealthy person are. You don't know who's Sid Harth. You don't know who's, you don't know who's anointed. And so if you just treat everyone like they're anointed, then there's no issue. And so the compassion aspect of me leads just to see another human. Like, I'm not seeing all that. I'm not seeing the way that they really do express the provenance of this piece, because it does have provenance. I don't see that. I just see another person, and I give them the same benefit of the doubt I give you or that houseless person. And, oftentimes than not, like, wealthy cats are, like, misunderstood. They've been misunderstood their whole life because of their wealth.
Right.
And, like, they just want to be treated like a regular person.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, when you get weird around them, it facilitates everything that they haven't liked about all their other experiences. But when you just be like some of my wealthiest art collectors that own so many of my pieces and just have such independent, multi-generational wealth, I think that they just love me because, like, from the beginning, I didn't treat them like, oh, wow, you've got this money. But I didn't treat them like, oh, you're Mr. Nobody. I treated them like I gave him the same benefit of the doubt that everyone else got. And so, in that way, when I wrote those circles, like, I feel like Hunter S. Thompson in a way, because I don't even necessarily roll in, trip, and face like him or all tweaked out, but I just thrive on the people watching and the experience and the novelty of, like, oh wow, isn't this fascinating? There's this, like, I was at Art Basel, there's this naked lady on the table, they've got banana leaves over her and they're serving sushi on her, and there's all these glass pipes, high-end glass pipes, and there's this lady doing flame blowing, and all of a sudden a ringtail lemur comes in, and I'm like, and like all these Lamborghinis and all this stuff, and I'm going, where am I?
Yeah,
like this
surreal.
This is fascinating.
It's like a Miami Burning Man of
fascinating, fascinating. And same thing, Burning Man. Like, I've never been on the playa, but like I always, when the Burning Man would start, they have a live stream that they used to just leave the camera on, and me and my wife, that was just like, we would leave that was Burning Man was just on in our house for the week,
that's a comfortable way of enjoying it.
We would want to go to the playa, but man, one thing or another, and whatever we had going on, and right when we really tuned in on it, it got super expensive, and that's when I decided to be an artist, and I got super broke. So it's like in the beginning of everyone's art journey, I think, is a little struggle. So that was when I was tuning in on Burning Man, and now it seems like, man, tickets are real hard to get these days, man.
Right.
You almost got to know somebody.
Well, I want to commend you for having such a good attitude of non-judgment for neither the rich nor the poor, and seeing the God in everyone and leaving the superficial wrapping of it on the side. That's pretty much the problem that humanity has right now, is we all judge and have preconceived notions of everybody else based on our rappers, on our body, on our race, on our culture, on our style, on our music, on our job. etc. You know, and it separates us. So it seems like you're breaking through that separation, and I think it's a beautiful thing.
Thanks, man.
So you're a positive person.
Yes,
Do
indeed.
you feel some people might have antibodies against somebody who comes out and be like, let's be good, let's be positive, let's love one another?
Oh, without a doubt. Because, man, I tell you, like, even though positivity is something that, like, saved my life, and, like, the teachers that I most look to, I mentioned Karis one, Fred Rogers, you know, Mr. Rogers, Ram Dass, Bob Marley. These are like the 4 horsemen of my apocalypse. These are the people. These are the people taking me home. You know what I mean? These are the people I'm looking to. I'm like, I'm coming to the clouds, man. One day.
We gotta do a painting like that, man.
Dude, I'm telling you, that'd be sick. Yeah. And like, and like, these people all like led with the heart, like right out here. And when you lead right out here with the heart out here, it's vulnerable, isn't it? Someone could shoot you. Someone could put an arrow through it, you know? And it's like, I realized that the positive path doesn't come without peril, because it's very polarizing. Like, even though we're being positive, we're extreme. We're still extreme, you know? And so some people who aren't, you know, who do look at the rapper, most people, whatever, you know, like, they're not concerned. They see us sometimes as, and especially if they're introverted, as vexing. They see people as like, oh, look at that guy. He's just dancing around because he's just trying to be fake, and just forget this guy. I don't,
You know? Can't really talk with that accent.
Yeah. Which I love. I told you, I love your accent. And, you know, there was this thing that, you know, Mac Miller said before he passed away, the rapper Mac Miller. He was like, a couple years before he passed, he was like, he's really going through a lot of growth, and he was like, man, you know, I used to see people be all positive and shit. That shit's fake. That's for the birds. He's like, but then I realized you can be that. You can wake up and choose yes and love. So I fuck with that, you know? And like, it was cool to see this little kid from the city, that little scrappy kid, like trying to find, you know, that yes, you know, you can. And so like, in that way, like, people see what I'm doing is polarizing, and I at a certain point in my personal development, like, I wasn't always positive. I wasn't always like bubbly and happy-go-lucky in hip-hop. I had to tell you, hip-hop saved my life. Like, I was a young, scrappy wrestler kid who had a big chip on his shoulder because of the world that I was born into. And, you know, I was born into a family that, you know, was a great family, but my mom had a lot of addiction. You know, and there was a lot of different things that had me frustrated, wanted me to rebel and break out of the cage. And so my way to deal with that was anger, and to be like, a lot of people that come back and know me, like, that didn't know me except for in high school, and then they come see me and they go, Kev? Is it what? I mean, you're a grumpy kind of, you're smart with your mouth and talk shit on people, and, you know, and I'm like, well, you know, man, like, we all got to grow up at some time. And so in my personal journey, when I would see people that were like, you know, positive. And I used to think like, you know, like the crocodile hunter. I was like inspired by him because I loved animals, but I was always like, man, what is he putting on this? What is this crap?
Happy-go-lucky thing.
Crap, you know, because I was at a point in my life where I was unhappy.
Yeah.
And when you are unhappy, when you're obese and you're truly in the depths, and like, I'm right now trying my best to confront my own obesity and go on a personal health journey. And I'm realizing, as I'm working out every day and as I'm choosing to take care of my vessel, that in the times, even recently in the past couple of years, where I have been the most unhealthy physically, I don't look to those people that are like David Goggins and like, you're doing it, Joe Rogan, and like, I'm always like, oh, piff. Like, you know, you don't want to...
It's triggering.
You don't want to hear the medicine that you need most, oftentimes. And so like, when you know, you don't, the thing that you don't want to see the most, that's the medicine, you know? And so in that way, at the times in my life when I was most unhappy, the most polarizing happy people, I'd be like, look at this guy, he's so happy, man, what has he got going? You know, because I think that's the troll mentality. The people online who express unhappiness, you'll never meet a hater doing better than you. You'll never meet somebody who's talking that shit and doing better than you.
Right.
And even at the times in my life, in my glass career, when I was like, oh, he's biting, and oh, that's my colorway, and, you know, I was the most unhappy. I was the most least assured in who I was and where I was going and how I was going to express it. And as you become more and more confident in that, I feel like it's easy to not care about that bullshit and be happy for others when they win and find that positive portal, that positive side of life, because once you start loving yourself and you have that awakening, whether it's through personal self-work, psychedelics, or heck, crocheting, whatever you do meditatively, that you focus your intention, that gets you to a perception, I think that a healthier perception, I think that you'll be happier for those, and you'll be inspired by those that are doing as good as you or better, instead of looking at them like, oh man, that's Chris Dyer, that can't be, whatever.
I ask you these things as a mirror to myself, because I also lean on positivity, but I don't lean on positivity because I'm delusional, thinking that there's only the good and only positive. I lean on it because I also suffer, and I suffer deeply. Yeah. And without that lifesaver or vibe saver of positivity, I would drown. Facts. Like, I feel so deeply that if I didn't nurture the positive side of life, which is just a perspective, that everything happens for a reason and that things have meaning and there is a spiritual purpose to it all, then I was just be in despair and go on a spiral down to self-destruction, which I've been on many episodes of my life.
Absolutely.
So positivity has a role, and I know it's triggering to some, and if some people might hate me for it. I don't mean to rub my vibe on anyone. I gotta just be myself. But I also encourage anybody to arm themselves with a positive perspective to start riding the spiral back up to the acceptance that everything is good, even when it feels bad.
Facts.
Yeah.
Like Dr. Seuss said, man, you got to be yourself all the time. Who minds doesn't matter, and who matters doesn't mind.
Right.
So
that's an important one, because I also judge myself a lot, and I let people who judge me affect me. And I guess the goal of my life is to just love myself unconditionally.
Yes.
And it's so hard sometimes.
Seeking unconditional love is the work.
Right.
That's the work. And when I put stuff on my stories or on my page, and someone will send me a beautiful message, hey, I got such good thoughts from that, or I love the way you express this, and I have to be honest with them. I'm like, hey man, that's for me. Between me and you, I'm glad that you got benefit of it, and that's the purpose, is that I'm sharing it in case anyone does, but it's a reminder, a constant reminder to myself, to stay in the moment, be here now, what have you, because as I said before, that's what saved my life. Hip hop, the consciousness within life, within music, within human expression, that's what saved my life, and that's what turned me to the other side of just positive thinking. Because, when it comes to thinking of big topic, but God, the Most High, whatever created us, aliens, the universe, when it comes to whatever intelligence brought us to this dimension, I'm a firm believer in that. I'm a firm believer in having a source. And people will be like, wow, this positive and all this source talk and all this, what are you going to do when you die and it's an implacable wall of black? And I'm like, oh no, I half expect that. And they're like, wait, what? And I'm like, well, yeah, I'm not married to any of my ideas. I'm not firm in the fact that I know where we go when we die. And even when I've heard of reincarnation, it's a beautiful story. And it resonates with me so much, because yes, such could be the truth. But do I know that to be a fact? No one knows, and that's what's the beauty. We're all seeking the mystery. And so in that way, trying to worry about was this a good idea? Well, yeah, even if this whole thing, positivity, thinking of source, is an illusion, it's a total thing that the human condition made up, I say, wouldn't that be beautiful to look back and say we created this thing that helped us act better and treat each other nicer and want to be in the moment and have nicer lives, more sustainable lives?
Yeah, because in the end, we could be wrong, but a perspective that's, hey, this matters and this has meaning and purpose, that just feels better.
Totally.
I feel.
Totally.
So, yes.
Cheers to that. Bless up.
So back to, and you can take you can take a dab now. Back to going to Miami. You were at the Bad Boys of Glass, which I don't know why they call it Bad Boys, but I guess you guys are the illegal artists.
I guess so. We're the fringe guys.
And I think you made up with my Galactic Gang homie, Kyle Morton.
Yes.
And he said like, hey, we're at a Chris Dyer show.
What a legend.
Come and join us. So,
even better, he was at our event and we were looking for something to do, and he brought us. He's like, we'll go right now. Let's get an Uber. So yeah, he brought us right to you, man.
it was you, Banjo, Eugene, Joey P was there too?
Joey and Joe Peters and Banjo's son were there, but they wanted to go back. They wanted to go back to the hotel. They were tired. So me, Morton, and Banjo, I think is who came.
Yeah, but Eugene was there too.
Oh yeah, that's right. Eugene and Peach came separately. That's right, because when I found out about the event, I was walking. We were walking to leave, and I saw them, and I was like, "Hey, what are you guys doing? Anything conscious tonight?" And they're like, "What do you mean? There's good vibes somewhere?" And I'm like, "Oh yes, dude. There's this little painting event, Chris Dyer. Come check it out." And I showed him the flyer. That's right. Eugene did come, man.
Yeah.
Yes,
Nice.
that's right. Beautiful.
Sweet. Well, I was stoked to see him there, both as a artist and a glass legend, but also as a skateboarder.
Skateboarder, yes.
Yeah, super cool guy. And at that event, you gave me a vibe saver, which looked like a little Cheerio rainbow situation.
Yes.
What are these contraptions you give to people?
Yeah, so basically, I was looking, to always manifest something that was unique and different. And, excuse me one second.
Yeah, man.
So, always looking for something to express something unique and something that carries a little bit of consciousness to it. And this totem came forth because I was working on the wet saw, and I had just shaved off the end of a piece of my Karma Stack tubing, and it was sitting in the wet tray there. And I was like, "Oh wow, that is really cool. That's just like by itself. That's a vibe, And so I didn't think that word, but I was just thinking, that's really cool. And I thought it looked like a lifesaver. I said, wow, that's cool. So I put a loop around it, and I wore it that day. And that night I was coaching my son's soccer practice. And, there's a bunch of 7, 8-year-olds running around, having a good time, and call them in at the end. Hey, everybody, all right, let's have 2 rules on Coach Karma's team. You got to try your best and have fun. So we say that at the end, try your best or have fun. And we break, and one of the kids, Kyle, goes, all right, Dad, can I get the birthday invitations for everybody? I just want to, and his dad goes, Kyle, I don't know how to tell you, we forgot the invitations at home. And he's, 7, 8 years old. He just melts, oh God, and I'm like, okay, like, let it happen for a second. But I was like, okay, hey, young man, Kyle, stand up, man. Come on, there's no crying on the soccer field. That's not going to get anything done. Take a few deep breaths. I go, and I turned around and took this little totem off, and that I had on it. I said, "You're so busy crying. You're so busy fussing. You didn't see Coach Kevin made you something. Look, I blow glass." And he goes, "Yeah." I go, "Look, I made you this." And he goes, "For me? That's for me?" And I go, "Yeah, dude. Made this for your birthday. Take it." And he's like, "Whoa, thanks." He's like, turns around to his homies. He's like, "Hey guys, my birthday party is this Saturday at 2:00. If anybody can come, you should come. All right, let's go play." And he just ran to the playground, and his dad looked at me, and he was like, "Dude, I owe you one for that." He was about to melt, man. And I was like, "I know, man. It's all good." He goes, "What'd you say you were calling those things?" Because I was talking with him, and I was telling him "Oh, look at this little lifesaver." And I was like, "Yeah, I call them lifesavers." He goes, "It's a vibe saver, bro. That's saving vibes out here." And so I was like, "Oh, lit." So I was like, "That's fun." And then we were driving home, and I just looked at my wife, and I'm like, "Man, vibe saver, a little totem." And so the way that I express, the way that when people ask what they are, the short answer, now I give you the short answer. The short answer is a totem to remind you of your highest ideals, whatever you conceive those to be. And so just a little something that when you bump into it, you just remind yourself of your highest ideals. What do you believe? If you don't believe in Christ, you believe in Buddha. If you don't believe in that, what do you believe in? Anything, whatever your highest ideals are.
Well, I liked having it in my pocket. It was like a circle. I was just turning it around, and it never ends. It's eternal. It's infinite. It's It goes into itself.
Yeah.
So I appreciate it. What about the rainbow? The rainbow's the same. The rainbow goes in circles into itself, and you rock the rainbow. Does it ever get linked up to the LGBTQ, which is also repping the rainbow?
Oh, absolutely, man. Absolutely. Like, I didn't even consider it, but yeah, absolutely. Like when I created with the rainbow pattern, it was based on the fact that within the color palette of glass, some colors that had come available that weren't previously available. And in soft glass, they've had hundreds of colors for hundreds of years. But in borosilicate, we're still in like the 50th, 60th year of our studio art movement. So we're not even a century old, and things like new colors that are just transparent purple and transparent pink come along, and they're very novel to our industry. And so those things came available. When those colors came available, it was something that I wanted to do since 2014, but just couldn't do. And I'd say, man, I'm gonna make the style I created is called a vac stack. It's a vacuum stack. You stack rods into a tube and you evacuate the air out of it. And ever since I started doing vac stacks in 2013 or 2012, I said, I'm gonna do this stained glass, psychedelic, all-inclusive pull. And, I just never could do it until around 2018 when the colors came out, end of 2017, 2018. And, it comes from, my love of it comes from its aesthetic pleasure. It looks aesthetically pleasing, of course, but the rainbow family from which, I was hewn, like I come from seeing the Grateful Dead. I come from going to rainbow gatherings and all my friends going to rainbow gatherings and being all-inclusive, and when I went to my first Grateful Dead show when I was 17, it was what was left of the Dead because Jerry had passed when I was in 5th grade. But, when I went to my very first Grateful Dead show, everybody jumped off on that 1 foot, man. There's a 400-pound black woman dancing with a skinny cowboy, white cowboy, and everyone's got their own dance style, and not one person is standing there going, oh, that guy. Oh, hey, I don't like the way you dance. Everybody was like, this. Come on in.
The Grateful Dead is a very inclusive tribe.
Come on in. And so I saw that, and I immediately, when I made this pull for the first time, I immediately was like, wow, this is my rainbow family pull, And so I wanted to start out with the Summer of the Rainbow because these materials were very hard to come by. Very hard to get your hands on. And I'm blessed because the people who manufacture the purples and the pinks and some of the colors in the stack, they are here in Asheville, North Carolina. So it ended up to where they saw that I was using their products and we were able to help facilitate each other's growth in that way, whatever small amount that may be. But it was a blessing to have them, here in town. And so I started realizing that, as I was sharing my energy and imbuing the glass with my intention, that people were reflecting that. People were coming back and saying like, hey, every time I smoke out of this, man, I think of the hip hop flow you spit. Because, when I post a video on Instagram since like 2019 or, probably 2019 or maybe 2018, Instagram got really, all the AI or all the robots got really intelligent about hearing music in the background. So I would post an auction or try to auction a piece, or I would post a piece to try to let people know about it and where to find it or that it was available, and it would get flagged. Sony Music Corporation owns this, and it would be like a Naughty by Nature or a KRS-One or a Nas song, and I'm like, what? This is lame. So what I started to do was I realized, man, I can make music. Like, I've been making music. I've been bellying up to hip hop freestyle since my Atlanta days. It's it's part of where the name Karma comes from, because when I came in and everyone had a glass name, I just used my hip hop name. And KRS-One had knowledge reigns supreme over nearly everyone. And so I was like, oh man, like when I was an MC back in Atlanta, I was like, conscious action, manifesting righteous awe, and so that was Karma. That was always in the MCs, like everyone was always calling me Karma. And also too, on like tour, Karma became my name. So it's like I put that intention, I try to imbue that intention into the glass. And when I get that reflection, when I was getting those reflection backs, I was seeing how all inclusive it was and how much like the Dead tribe it was. And I was like, wow, this is something that I want to perpetuate. Like, I want to perpetuate the energy of the Dead, the energy of inclusivity. So that's where the birth of the Karma Tribe. I lovingly call the people who collect the art the Karma Tribe, and definitely the LGBTQ is a full element of that. You know, they see the rainbow, they're naturally attracted to it because that's the symbol that they've taken on. And so, yeah, I have a number of clients who are, you know, LGBTQ and everything in between. So it's a beautiful thing. And I've aligned.
So they're included in that, but it's not just that.
No way. No way.
It's
Absolutely
everything.
not. The rainbow's for everybody, man.
Well, that's what I think too.
Yeah.
You know, like I paint a lot of rainbows into my art, and it's never like, oh no, they're not part of that. Like if they want to be part of that, like everything is part of that.
Everybody.
It's
Absolutely.
oneness, but not just that.
That's right.
You
No
know?
no way anything could be just anything. And that's the funny part about divisiveness in the world, you know, is that people are like, well, I don't know about anybody with blue eyes because they all fart, you know? It's like, come on, man. Like, people find the funniest thing about people's nationality, preferred way of worship, preferred way of being, dressing, acting, and demonize it, you know? And it's like, no, man, we're all here to do the same thing.
Yeah.
And like, I always, like, since I was like a young man, I've called this classroom Earth. Like, if you're here to get the download, get the download. Like, when you went to class, did you ever walk into class and be like, oh my gosh, like, this guy's too white to be here. This guy's too black to be here. No, that's ridiculous. Right on its face. And so, in that way, like, you know, it's funny to me, all that stuff, because it's like, it's literally is bizarre. It's almost like a bad Dr. Seuss novel. There was a land where everybody thought
They were different the way they looked like.
but they were all made of the same atoms, and they were all.
But the weird thing is that's the reality we live right now, and people are just so. And I guess I include myself in it because I myself sometimes fall for
Sure.
like, oh, how is that person? Because I'm not used to that way of expression.
Sure.
But in the end, we all know we're just like souls living this experience. So going back to the name Karma that you brought up, is it true that karma's a bitch?
Well, I always say my joke is like, only if you are, you know, like, I feel like karma is like the guiding force of the universe. And some people will like think it's a hippie cop-out, like, oh, I'm gonna let karma handle it because I don't want to handle it. I don't want to deal with that uncomfortable. But when you look at, it's funny, a lot of people in spirit and a lot of people in science think the same thing, you know, and most people could align themselves with one or the other. I agree. I don't believe in spirit. I believe in science. I don't believe in science. I believe in spirit. But like I said about the atoms, like, oh, so you believe there's this invisible thing that makes us up. You call it God, and it's all of us, and it's separateness but oneness. And it's like, no, I don't believe that, good sir. I believe there's atoms that are small on a quark gluon level that all vibrate off each other, and that makes us all. It's invisible. It makes us all up, and it's like we all believe such similar things. You know what I mean? And so, in that way, karma. If you don't believe in karma, do you believe that every action has an equal and/or opposite reaction? You know, do you believe in the laws that you say govern our universe and physics? You know, and so I feel like I've bared witness to me putting out goodness and receiving back goodness, just like I've bared witness to the times that I've put out poison and I've just had to just digest 3 times poison. You know, like, there's people that are born into circumstance, and then there's people that put themselves in circumstance, and I was the latter. Like, I was in that orphanage with kids that like had bad childhood homes for real. Not kids that were, you know, middle class, rebellious with an alcoholic mother. You know, like people whose moms was smoking crack and left them on the side of the highway for no reason, because she was too addicted to take care of them. Terrible, destitute stories. And so when we put out the poison, we get it back. And I feel that can't be denied. So people who say karma's a bitch, I'm like, man, are you being naughty? Or, you know, and it's like, we're all naughty time to time, but on an overwhelming basis, I find that when I go into my post office and I communicate kindness and I communicate love to the people, because everyone's in there, 15 minutes again, another 10 minutes, and then I like stand there like just like this like starry-eyed hippie, and I'm like, but doesn't the package like fly all the way to California for $3? That's pretty cool. And they're like, well, yeah, I guess that is convenient, but I mean, I just, and it's like people are looking for every reason to be out of shape. And when you go in there and I'm like, hey, Roger, what's up, fam? And he's like, oh, Karma, how we doing, man? I'm like, living life and loving it, you already know. And he's like, come on, man, spit me one. And I'm like, I'm at the post office today. A great day to be alive, so let's thrive. Time to ride. All right, Roger, bye. You know? He's like, oh, man, like, you make people's day. And guess what? I showed up at 5, they closed at 5. I showed up at 5:20 the other day. And I, like, pulled into the parking lot just to see, is there still a line? Can I? And I was like, I pulled in. I was like, oh man, they closed up tight. I like put the car in reverse. He comes running out.
Yeah. No, give it in.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, are you sure? I was just checking. He's like, give me that, Karma. You know, and it's like people will bend over backwards to serve you if you bend over backwards to serve them. You know, and it's like that I have witnessed. I know that's a fact. So people are like, oh, Karma's a bitch. I'm like, man, cheer up, man. Yeah. Be nice. You know?
That's awesome. That's beautiful. When you give, you get back.
That's right.
Tell me that story about that day with the flying bills and shit.
Oh, gosh. You're talking about that time on String Cheese Lot, dude.
Yeah.
Legendary, dude. So basically, one time when I was a younger, more fledgling glassblower, it was in 2012. So I had 2 years on the torch. And me and my wife, we had 2 children, really hand to mouth, like making chillums and really simple pieces, selling for really modest prices, $10 and $20 on String Cheese Lot. And you know, we're sitting there, we set up our Easy Up, we got our little tapestries, and we're doing our sales. And no, it just was one of those nights, man. We're feeling like terrible people because we didn't even have tickets to the show. We couldn't afford them. And we didn't really even, we wanted to go in, but it wasn't really even our plan. We just wanted to be able to generate some income from the lot. And we left our kids with my dad, you know, and my dad's a bit disabled. He's got a broken back. And so it was like a lot on him. And we were just feeling like just these terrible parents who are like, man, we got this babysitter. We didn't make any money. Oh, we can't even go into the show. Like, just what a weird, terrible night, you know? And it was truly a bummer. And my friend Dustin, who was always just hanging out and always hanging around, he was like, I'll come and hang. And so it was just the 3 of us. And we're packing up the Easy Up to go inside. And we drop the Easy Up and drop the tables. And like $100 bill goes like floating by in the parking lot. And I'm like, whoa, I could use that. And so like I run over and I just like hyper focused on this one bill. I'm like, boom. And I like put my foot on it because it's blowing in the wind. And this houseless dude comes over and he's like, hey now, young blood. Like, and he puts his foot on the bill and I looked up and I'm like, is that yours? And he's like, is that yours? And I'm like, nah. He's like, I'm like, all right, man, you could use it. Just take it, man. And he's like, thanks, young blood. I appreciate you. And I'm like, man, like turn around. And as I turn around, like, you know, like out of a dream, like somebody just emptied a sack of cash. $100 bills just go blowing down the street.
And like tumbleweed.
Like a tumbleweed of hundreds. And I like look up the street like, did a bank truck get tipped over? Is there like a super high level nitrous mafia guy like, you know, looking for, he dropped a big fat wad of cash and
you never found that.
Oh no, nobody was like, we were like, what's going on? And by the time we could do that, everyone's, oh, get it. And we all stood around like, what is going on? And as we're standing around with like 100 and 200, it's still coming. It's still everywhere. So we just kept everyone. I mean, the homeless people got a few $100s. We got a few $100s. My friend got a few $100s. Like everybody who was there, because it wasn't like everybody. The show had started. The show, everyone had gone in. You
guys were like the leftovers that couldn't afford to get in.
Yeah, we were packing up and just, you know, the leftovers. So there was probably about 20, 30 people out there, but it wasn't like the hundreds of people that were there just 20 minutes before. And they all went in the concert. And so we were like, oh my gosh, this is so crazy. And we're like, maybe we can now. We got a couple $100 and got money for diapers and everything. Let's go ahead and try to find a ticket. Maybe we can find a ticket. The show may not be sold out. So we like pack everything in. And I mean, we did stay there for another probably 20 minutes because we wanted to make sure every dollar was, we got every dollar.
Those bills counts.
And we also too wanted to make sure, like, honestly, if somebody was like looking for the money, I'm not gonna like take it. So we're looking too. We were also very curious, like, okay, is this okay, anybody? And like there was just a group of people all standing around with money in our hands, and we were like, I guess this is ours. This is crazy. And so we all pack in. We go up to the show to try to find tickets. And it's at the Fox Theater in Atlanta, Georgia. And I'm like going up, we're running up. And all of a sudden the side door of the Fox pops open, which isn't like a thing. It's like the backstage to one of the bigger venues in Atlanta. And it pops open. And my dear friend David Hale is right there. And he's like, Kev. And I'm like, whoa, David. He's like, dude, I've been looking for you. And I'm like, me, really? And he puts a backstage pass over my head and a backstage pass over my wife's head. And he goes, dude, I did the artwork. I did the for the Georgia run, the 3-day run here at the Fox Theater. So he's like, bro, I had these extras. I didn't know who to give them to, but I knew you might be here. And so, boom, just like that, we went from like totally destitute, nothing going on, to backstage. And I was telling this story to String Cheese Incident, and Bill Nershy's there, and Kyle's there, and they're all like, really? And I'm like, I swear, it's crazy, you know? And so they played a wonderful show, and it just became a memory. So, you know, you have experiences like that in life, and, you know, I feel like I could write a book about those kinds of experiences where I tell stories and people are like, you know, no way. You know, I've been on LSD in the back of a cop car, but I wasn't arrested. And on tour, and he picked me up when my Grateful Dead tour, when me and Mary's van broke down. He's like super, like, I was like tripping really hard on LSD, and we were on the side of the road in the middle of nowhere, North Carolina, and he basically pulled over, and he's like, what's going on here? What's the problem? And we were like, well, you know, we're just broke down. He goes, no, I know your type of people. You like to take, you know, drugs and see the Grateful Dead, because they just played at the Coliseum. And I was like, sir, I don't know about all that, but I do know that I'm broke down, and I have seen the Grateful Dead about 100+ times in the incarnations of such. He goes, okay, well, what do you intend to do, sir? I said, well, sir, if me and you were kinfolk, me and you was related, I'd ask you for a ride to the next exit so that I could just stay at a hotel for the night. And he goes, okay, get in the car. And he like pops out and opens up the back car, and I'm like, it's a trap. It's a trap.
They're taking us to jail.
It's a trap. But he lets me in, and it was almost like that movie Super Troopers, man. Like as soon as we got in the back of the car, he turns up the Allman Brothers, and he looks back and he goes, hey man, I don't like that old methamphetamine, that old hard drugs and stuff. People like you, you're all right with me. And he goes, wow, and we floor it, man. We go, wow, and we just fly on the highway, and we, wow, and we go up to this hotel, and he goes, I know Jenny in here. I went to high school with her. Let me talk to her about a family rate.
Oh,
Goes
wow.
inside, talks to this lady, the Country Hearth Inn in High Point, North Carolina. I'll never forget this shit. Officer David Doolin, big respect. And then like, he lets us out of the back of the car. He's like, yeah, I got you guys the family rate. He said, man, I don't know if it's possible, but my brother-in-law owns a wrecker service. He goes, I'm gonna give you a card for that. And maybe you could use him tomorrow. Maybe not, but that'd be appreciated. And I was like, Officer Doolin, man, like, if there's ever anything I can do, man, like, I just want to let you know, you come across my tribe. He goes, man, it's one of the coolest cops ever. He goes, man, this world's got a lot of itches. It's got a lot needs scratched. If we all get to scratching, maybe we'll all get our itch scratched.
Oh, man, it's so beautiful.
And gave me the fucking most hearty handshake, man. And had to have known my little tripping eyes, man. He had to have known. And I'm like, thank you, man, so much. And he's like, you get you some sleep. You look like you could use it. And I was like, oh my God. And dude, we get into that hotel room, and I'm like, what just happened? Like, so I get on the phone, I'm like calling my friends that are still coming back they just left the Coliseum too. I'm like, hey dude, I was just in the back of a cop car. They're like, what's going on? I was like, but I didn't get arrested. They're like, what? You know? And as we were winding down for the night, my wife reminded me that we left that Coliseum show a little early, like when they started Encore, just to beat traffic. And there was a dread in the parking lot who was screaming, "Rah!" in agony. "Rah!" And I came out to him and I was like, brother, what is the matter? And he's like, they got my boy Tommy. He had mushroom chocolates and they arrested him, they tackled him and fucking fucked the police and fucked this life. And I said, brother, Tommy, your boy, was doing what he came here to do. He came to fucking get people high, came to make money for his family, came to hustle. That cop was doing what he came here to do. We're playing a game, and you know that. And Tommy knew that too. You better get your shit together before you go meet Tommy tonight. Screaming out here in this park, give me a hug. And we went chest to chest, and I gave him just a big bear hug, and I was like, don't fuck the police. Get smart and just evade them like the rest of us, Papa. And he was just like, thank you, man. Like, thank you. And I was just like, no. And so at the end of the night, Mary was like, don't you remember? You like big ups. You like put the police on a level playing field with the people before he picked us up. She's like, that's that karma, Daddy. And like, so when karma treats you like it's treated me, how could karma be a bitch?
Wow, such beautiful stories, man. I love it. Because you get the vibes you put into the world.
That's a
you
fact.
know, like you gotta just put more good out there, even when the world's harsh and they take your boy Tommy. It's not like you're gonna be like, yay, that's a good thing. But
way.
also you don't gotta continue the destruction and the negativity. You gotta kind of like just take it as a man and just move, you know, and a
Yes.
woman, or just like with strength.
Yes.
And, you know, move forward and make the best of it or the
Yeah.
most of it. And keep on attracting something good, hopefully,
Yeah.
or at least not attracting something bad.
More negative, absolutely, you know?
Yeah.
Like when I first took on the name Karma, a part of it too was like, there's an old song that from the 90s that was by this band New Radicals. And it's like, don't give up, you got a reason to live. And he's like, don't forget, we only get what we give. And I loved that song when I was a kid. And it was like coming on the Pandora, when I first started blowing glass, it was like coming on the Pandora. And I was like, oh yeah, this old song, man, that's so cool. I hadn't heard this one. And you only get, and I was like, yeah, I am Karma. And I'm worried, I'm like, that's what I have to bring into the glass, because early on in the glass, I was looking at like people who were way ahead of me. And I was like, man, there's no way I'm gonna how will I ever get to them? And I realized, I was like, I can access these levels by putting in more work. So like I was looking at my peers, I was like, man, they're working 40-hour work weeks. I was like, I want my wife to be able to stay home with the children. I'm gonna work 80-hour work weeks, 100-hour work weeks. And like, still to this day, I work 60 and 80-hour work weeks. And I believe in putting in, like my buddy Salt says, he's like, you're you're spiritual, you're not religious, you travel around the country like a gypsy, and you're not Amish, but you're Karmish. You work a little harder, put in more hours than the next guy. And I do feel like that's been my recipe. Like even last night, the class is over, things are done. I'm gonna make a few more moves. I'm gonna get a workout in. Like I've always been that guy to put in a little bit more. And because I've never felt, it's not that I think less of myself, because people think I'm being like self-deprecating when I say, but I've never felt like I'm more special in most of my talents than the next guy. My special talent is that I have a pain tolerance. I can put in the work. I can put the suffering. Like when I hike the Appalachian Trail, everybody, we could 20 miles today. I'd say we could do another 10 if we, and everyone, you are a psychopath. You are a psychopath. But when I set my sights on something, or when I decide, I want to do something, it's not, we're not going half for the gusto. Like KRS-One said, like on an album, he had this, the album that really changed my life, Spiritual Minded. He had this cat from Atlanta who started these groups because basically KRS-One said, look, hip hop needs it. There's all these secret societies. There's all these people that we say we don't know what's going on. Let's start our own secret society. So he started the Temple of Hip Hop. And they started meeting at different places, Hillside International Truth Center and different meetups. And there was this cat who was in Atlanta at the time named Minister Server. And on this Spiritual Minded album, he says, we look out there at the political spectrum and they are bombing other countries. We look out there and they are making political ads that say wild and crazy shit. Do abort your fetus, don't abort your fetus, all kind of crazy shit. And we look at gang members and they're on the street, bow, bow, going for the gusto, jumping people into the gang, going as hard as they can go. But us as believers, us as conscious people, where are we as serving our people, going as hard as we can go no matter what? And so in that way, you know what I mean? Like, I always felt like that was my blessing. That was my gift. I can go hard. I can, if we're serving, let's serve hard. You know what I mean? And so I've always felt like, you do only get what you give in this life, and so that's been a huge a huge part of my personal development.
Well, when I imagine, like, when you take a potent name or word as karma, you're multiplying the potency of that. Like, karma exists on its own, but you're like embedding that code onto you. So you're multiplying that shit. And it's like, I believe in karma, this shit's gonna happen to me tenfold.
That's a fact.
And that's a fucking heavy thing to carry because you can't fuck up.
No,
you
facts.
fuck up and you're gonna get punished like 10 times.
That's a fact.
But when things go well and the positivity you put out, it's multiplied also
Yep.
by 10 times. So I guess my question to you is, in this path of being an artist, do you feel that you're more than just some glass blower bringing in some cute rainbow colors to the community, but you're like a shamanic warrior bringing in some like potent vibe from the spiritual beyond to inject into that whole community?
I have to be. I have to be. It's just evident in the relationship I have with the people who have experienced the glass, you know, and I've asked people like, you know, why, you know, there's certain people that'll send me these really heartfelt messages about the path correction that they've had based on my glass pipes and based on the things I've said, you know. And so at first, you know, I was just trying to perform a service in a lineage of Fred Rogers and Bob Marley, and I was like, man, if I could be half, a third, a quarter, a tenth of as cool as any of those guys, what a fulfilling life that could be, you know. And so in that way, it started as a what if, and now it's a for sure. I know that, and I have an email full of that where, like, when I have something like, you know, people ask like, "Oh, do you get sad? Do you like, you're always so bubbly and positive? Do you get sad?" And I'm like, of course, you know. But what it is I'm taking self measures to, you know, it's like asking, you know, a bodybuilder, does he eat fatty foods? Like, yes, of course, but I don't do that shit every day. You know what I mean? I work against that, and I have ideas and I have methods to prove against that. And so, yeah, like, I get sad and I get down, but at the end of the day, like, you know, I have this methodology of positivity, and that, you know, is something that, you know, filters into the expression. So when you have, like, you know, when the you know, when the weight of that, you know, of karma is put on you, it's a lot, but it's also, like you said, it's you get what you give. So, you know, as long as you keep, you know, on the path, you know, it's a beautiful thing.
You're strong enough to take on that role, and you know, people think as like, oh, like, what, you're making yourself into this big artist, this, you know, this high and mighty things. Like, that comes with goods and bads, because you're doing it as at least if you got the good intentions, you're doing it as a service to the community. It's like, yeah, like, maybe my ego will be happy that I'm a big artist or a popular whatever, but at least in my case, like, I'm doing it because the world needs more Mr. Rogers. The world needs more Bob Marleys and Karis One and Jerry Garcias. There's not enough. There's too many jerks kind of like confusing us and making us divisive. And we have to become that role model to the youth and to our communities and our peers. And I know that opens me up in a very vulnerable, sensitive position as an artist to mad criticism and judgment, and, you know, and it's difficult, and I don't want to do it many times. I'm sure you don't want to do it half the days, but we want to bring in that element, and it's past like, hey, here's my glass offering, here's my mural or my painting. Like, that's what I like to do, but what I'm offering is beyond that. It's an energy, and this is what I want to serve in the world, and this is what I see you serving in the world.
It's definitely what I'm attempting to serve in the world. And I mean, like, you know, I'm trying to remember who said this, but like, someone says, like, if you want to live in a world, if you say peace, brother, and you want to live in a world in a peaceful, you better damn well be peaceful. You better damn well live out these actions you say you want. You know, you want to see a world that's a happier world. You gotta. It starts with being that, you know. And even in the face of, like, you know, a world that doesn't necessarily act like that, you know, I feel like it's the thing that gives us, like, we want to take the shadow and we want to push it away. That's as natural human. We go, let's get the negativity out of here. No negative zone, no negativity. I feel like negativity and, you know, downstruction holds a place, holder, and it's like the classic yin and the yang, where there's darkness and light and these are our dance partners, you know. And like, what, you know, one thing, like, I remember holding the door for like a seemingly Latin immigrant homie. He's like, you know, he's got covered in paint. You know, he looks like he's on a paint crew. We're at the gas station. I hold the door, and like, you know, I'm holding the door for everybody, and then he's like a little like long ways off, and like I just stay there, and he's like, me? I'm like, yeah, get in there, man, come on. And he was like, oh, thank God, these guys. And I was like, man, that guy was like, I was telling to Mary, I was like, that guy was like mega grateful just for that. Like, and I was just like, man, that's whack. And she's like, why? That was sweet. And I'm like, no, it's whack that like, he's so mega grateful because like so many cats have not hold the door, have been like, oh yeah, no, that guy, whatever. And it's like, it takes thousands of people to not be conscious so that when a person that comes along is like, hey, shouldn't we stop doing this and shouldn't we live a little bit more sustainably, or wouldn't it be kind of cool if we all got along a little better? That brings potency to the message. You know what I mean? And it's like, you know, anytime in the face of the most darkest shit, you got MLK who's like, and we will march, you know, and everyone's like, whoa, like the potency of somebody to stand against that, against Gestapo, to come in with them, you know, and it's like, whoa, that guy's a superhero. And like, he was a double, mega triple superhero, just like Bob Marley, because he stood on big issues. And he was like not afraid to walk right in and, you know,
After getting shot.
oh, dude, absolutely. In Rhodesia, in Mozambique, where they were changing Mozambique's government to Rhodesia.
Zimbabwe.
Or Zimbabwe, that's what it was, to Rhodesia to Zimbabwe. And they tear gassed the stage. And he was like, I'm going out. And he played through the tear gas, you know, and like standing on the things he believed in. That's hard shit to do. And the higher and higher the consciousness, like, you see someone stealing at the store, right? You see somebody running out, like to stand in front of them or to stop, thief. That's hard work on the local level, right? The higher and higher you take that work, you know, like the more and more you open yourself up to the vulnerability of, you know, and that's what, you know, to quote KRS-One again, you know, it's like he says he's got a song called The Conscious MC. And he's like, you know, to be the conscious MC, you got to love God and you got to live free. You got to see the light that others can't see. You got to be the thing that others can't be. And in that song, he talks to where he's like, he's like, people won't account for the love that you give them. They'll hold you to higher standards, but they won't live them, you know? And it's like, oftentimes enough, it's like, when you point that finger at old Mr. Chris Dyer, at me, at your wife, at your neighbor, you got them three fingers pointing back at you. And it's like, you know, all of these most age-old wisdoms are the key to our happiness, but because we're born into this imperfect human thing, you know, it's hard to keep those things. And that's where it's beautiful to have friends like you and friends like, you know, conscious beings like all around the globe that we all connect with. And I know you have a network of people, and through Dead Tour and through Life and Glass Blowing, I've come with a network of people that, you know, that love, serve, and remember, that do the Ram Dass vibe where, you know, it's like we love, we serve each other, and when we forget, we remind each other. You know what I mean? And so that's like...
and we are compassionate to each other on our path.
Absolutely.
You know, because we all suffer. You know, and as I said, you know, we use this positivity and we lean on what we want to be, because we're not it yet. No one is enlightened, or at least I haven't met anyone who is perfect at every single time. And when we do fall, we can be there for each other with compassion and lift each other up. And that's why I made this show, you know? Like, I want to see more Mr. Rogers and Bob Marley's. And I was like, look at this gem, doesn't he shine? You know, let's all like create more beautiful stars to, you know, activate each other, like that banjo nucleus, Devi in the middle, activating the Voltron robot of positivity to lift up this whole fucking world into a positive reality.
Yeah,
so
man.
thank you for the work that you do, my brother.
Likewise, man.
We got a day of art making. You and Lacey will be finishing off that glass sculpture. I got a mural to paint.
Let's go,
so
man.
we're gonna call it at that. Thank you so much for the beautiful wisdom. You've bathed us in wisdom in the last 2 hours. Would you have some final words to glass blowers out there, people starting up, or just anybody in general?
Man, I think because probably a lot of glass blowers watch your podcast, but I think a whole of everybody, it's more of a contingency of just general humans. I'll share some advice that came through Ram Dass, and that's just love everything. Just love everything, man. Like the good, the bad, witness it, love it, let it go. Be here now. Let's go.
And love is God, and
that's right.
And then if love is everything, God is here.
That's
in
right.
all of us, which is we just gotta like surrender to it.
That's right. I actually, if it makes it poignant, I have a little passage. I brought out the Gospel of Hip Hop, that little passage about God being love.
Yeah.
And this is an 800-page book that outlines.
It looks like a Bible.
Yes.
I'm surprised that's the KRS one.
Yes, it outlines hip hop and its strategies, and this is one thing that this is so cool. I think I opened right to it too. Let's see here.
A minister of the tribe of love.
That's right. So let's see, 2:14 through 17. Yeah, let's see here. And this outlines all the 9 elements of hip hop, the principles of hip hop.
I'm gonna try to get that book.
Oh yeah, this book was only printed one time, and so it's like become very hard
to get.
Hard to get. Yes, it's a very expensive book nowadays.
We're almost done here.
Yes.
We're on a final.
Okay.
Religious passage.
Okay. So this passage has brought me a lot of joy and understanding just on how people view God. And so it goes like this. Many people follow the tradition that God is love, and yes, such is the truth. But when you really begin to live out that statement, you find more the fact that love is God. God is just a term that makes love understandable to human beings. The term God is not anything unto itself, but what the term God actually describes is love and activities of love. Yes, for many people, God is love. But for us, love has been our God. Love is what has served, and love is what has saved us. God is not above love. Love is God. Love is not from God. Love is the only God we've ever known. The term God is not above the term love, because without the term love, the term God has no meaning and ceases to exist. For it is love that defines God and empowers him, her, it to act. Love is the true God, and to love is God. For it is not God that governs and orders our universe, it is love. And it is not God that destroys the universe, it's the illusionary absence of love. Therefore, let us return to our ancient understanding of God as an event of great love that operates as the universe itself. Let us return to our ancestral wisdom, formed from real experiences that we've had with God, the love that has enlightened us.
Beautiful.
Isn't that a fun one? Isn't that a fun one, man? I love that one, man. It just puts things in perspective, because God is such a God is almost like, it's like you know, like they call the 4-letter words, like, you know, bad words or whatever. But God's like the 3-letter word. You say that and people just get all kind of crunchy.
Right.
But I don't believe in God as the modern
Bearded guy
understanding.
in the sky judging people from a cloud.
No, it's the ancient understanding of love, you know, and activities of love. So
that's beautiful.
Yeah, man. Thanks for letting me share
that. Thank you so much, Karma,
Yeah,
for
of course,
everything.
man.
And thank you guys for tuning in to another week of Chris Dyer's Creative Friends. Make sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, and keep on spreading these loving vibes to everybody. I love you, and I'll see you next time. Blessings!
Woo! Let's go. That was fun, man. Bring it in.
Next episode, Sweet Melis. So the character of your paintings is nature itself, the spirit of nature.
Yes, which I'm glad you just said the spirit, because I think of nature as God, and what makes a snail shell make that perfect spiral, or a fern leaf go out in perfect geometry.
It's the spirit of life
Yeah,
also.
like
It's a code.
that is what I'm painting. It's the code.
It's the, I
must live and exist and
Yeah,
die and
ever
regrow.
expanding and just constant change and the life and death and growth, really.
So please make sure to subscribe, like, comment, and share. Big thanks and see you next episode. Peace.